Hi, I'm Adam Pritchard, Assistant Curator of Paleontology for the Virginia Museum of Natural History, and I'm back with another tale of ancient life. They were over 40 feet in length, longer than a school bus. Their skulls were the size of an easy chair. Their teeth were enormous, over 5 inches long as a human hand. And they were the largest carnivorous animals to walk the landscape of No, for once I wasn't talking about you. Well, because there are actually multiple groups of carnivorous dinosaurs that got every bit as big as you did. I know. But I told your story already. I'll tell more stories about you to be sure. Now, it is the time to talk about some of your biggest competition in the biggest carnivore dinosaur contest. This is the tale of T-Rex's rival. Tyrannosaurs were first discovered by modern scientists during the late 19th century in the late Cretaceous rocks of western North America. The first pieces ever discovered were their very distinctive and very massive sharp teeth, much like our T-Rex back here. But after a while, more pieces started coming out, initially of animals 20 or 30 or so feet in length. They were distinctive with massive jawbones, short crests above the eyes, tiny two-fingered hands, and long legs ending in three-toed feet. And it wasn't until 1905 that Dr. Henry Fairfield Osborn of the American Museum of Natural History in New York described the first known specimens of Tyrannosaurus rex. This was an animal bigger than any other tyrannosaur, up to 40 or so feet in length. In the 1990s, a legendary specimen known as Sue the T-Rex, a nearly 90% complete skeleton, was found in South Dakota. And she, at the time, was the biggest carnivorous dinosaur ever found, 42 feet in length. And it was during the early 1990s that a very, very young Adam Pritchard was getting into paleontology, and he was obsessed with numbers like 40 feet long, or 18 feet tall, or 7 tons. All the stats about T-Rex and the other dinosaurs. I was obsessed with those kinds of specifics, which is totally different from today, somehow. And one of the reasons I loved T-Rex back then was because its stats among the carnivorous dinosaurs were the biggest. It was the longest. It was the tallest. It was the heaviest. Until 1995. In 1993, paleontologists working in New Quine province in Argentina discovered the partial skeleton of a gigantic carnivorous dinosaur. It's much older than Tyrannosaurus rex. T-Rex comes from rocks between 68 and 66 million years ago. This new carnivorous dinosaur came from rocks in Argentina that were over 95 million years old. And it was big. The pieces of the skull they found suggested a head that was just about 6 feet in length. The femur, the thigh bone, was longer than the biggest ever found of Tyrannosaurus rex. Everything about this new animal suggested a carnivore bigger than T-Rex. They dubbed this carnivorous dinosaur Giganotosaurus, meaning giant southern lizard. And it took the dino media by storm. I still remember this. All the news sites talked about this biggest carnivorous dinosaur being discovered and how much it threw T-Rex off of its throne. Young Adam was thoroughly freaked out by this. I'm serious. I was crazy about Tyrannosaurus rex, and I thought its coolness was gone all of a sudden because they discovered this bigger carnivorous dinosaur. No offense. And it's funny to look back on the internet from that time because a lot of people were actually arguing back and forth about the fine details of the statistics for the length of the femur or the length of bones of the skull to try and figure out if you could really say which one was the absolute biggest. But then a few years later, a team of the same paleontologists in Argentina found a bone of the jaw of a Giganotosaurus that was even bigger than the original type specimen. that suggested a skull over 6 foot 4 inches in length and an animal well over 40 feet in length. So solidly bigger in many ways than the biggest Tyrannosaurus rex. So how right was young Adam? Did the mere existence of a giant like Giganotosaurus take away from what made Tyrannosaurus rex awesome? Well, no. I talked several months ago about all the things about it that made it a really interesting animal. Being a supergiant among the carnivorous dinosaurs is only one of those things. And there are a lot of things about this other dinosaur, Giganotosaurus, that make it very cool in its own right. Tyrannosaurus rex and Giganotosaurus may both be giants, but they're not particularly close relatives among the carnivore dinosaurs. They're part of two very different families. Tyrannosaurus is a member of the Tyrannosaurid family, and these were giants, but only during the last 20 million years or so of the Cretaceous period, and only on the continents of North America and Asia. Other carnivorous dinosaurs were plentiful on the other continents. Giganotosaurus is part of a very different family, specifically the Carcharodontosaurids. They lived before tyrannosaurs across most of the continents of our planet, including North America, South America, and Africa. And the extinction of Carcharodontosaurids happened well before the end of the Cretaceous period, and it might have actually paved the way for tyrannosaurs to grow to the giants that they would become. The Virginia Museum of Natural History actually has a cast skeleton of a Carcharodontosaurid on display, the best known one from North America, Acrocanthosaurus, which, like I said, lived in the Cretaceous period in western North America, but well before the tyrannosaurs reached their giant size. A couple of big differences to spot your Carcharodontosaurs versus your tyrannosaurs. For one thing, Carcharodontosaurs have small 3-fingered hands, in contrast to the 2-fingered hands that typify tyrannosaurids. Tyrannosaurids also have much more massively built wide skulls, especially in the back of the head. Carcharodontosaurs are a lot longer and narrower, reaching lengths that are longer than the Tyrannosaurus, but not nearly as massive. Their teeth are also very different. Tyrannosaurs typically have very wide teeth relative to other carnivorous dinosaurs, especially the case in Tyrannosaurus rex. Carcharodontosaurs, on the other hand, have relatively narrow, thin teeth, almost blade-like teeth. T-Rex is good at powerful biting. Carcharodontosaurs are better suited for slicing. So T-Rex is definitely a giant, but Giganotosaurus was every bit as big, if not bigger, than Tyrannosaurus rex. But size is just one part of the biology of an animal. I mean, no offense, it's an important part, but you have to look at all of the details of the specimens you have to really understand what makes an animal species unique in the fossil record and how it fitted into its environment. If you look at the power of the potential bite of an animal like T-Rex, substantially stronger than we think Giganotosaurus and the Carcharodontosaurs would have been. If you're judging by the absolute lengths of the animals, Carcharodontosaurs seem to have gotten a little bit bigger than Tyrannosaurs. If you judge by the sharpness of the teeth, Carcharodontosaurs are way more slicey and knife-like than Tyrannosaurs. It's also interesting to think about the different kinds of prey that animals like Carcharodontosaurs and Tyrannosaurs would have had to contend with. Carcharodontosaurs in South America were living alongside some of the gigantic long-necked titanosaurs, members of the sauropod family. Some of the biggest dinosaurs that ever lived, animals like Argentinosaurus and Patagotitan. In addition, they were also potentially chasing down fleet-footed, two-legged herbivores called iguanodonts. In North America, Tyrannosaurus rex was living alongside the legendary horned dinosaurs like Triceratops, duckbills like Edmontosaurus, and the armored Ankylosaurus. So these were animals living in very different ecosystems that supported different species of herbivorous dinosaurs that I'm certain would have made a delicious meal in both cases. And ironically, we're now pretty sure that another carnivorous dinosaur was longer and potentially heavier than both Giganotosaurus and Tyrannosaurus rex. That being the extremely bizarre North African theropod Spinosaurus. Again, an animal I talked about in an earlier episode of Tales of Ancient Life. See the archives. It was definitely tough as a child to confront the idea that another carnivorous dinosaur could be bigger than Tyrannosaurus rex. But honestly, now that I look back on it, it's such a silly thing to make size the only part of the story, the only part of an animal that is really compelling. Both of these dinosaurs were two incredible giants with their own separate stories and their own separate heritages. Each had different adaptations for surviving in their environments in the ancient landscapes. With each and every new dinosaur that comes up in the scientific literature, it can be easy to reduce the newness of it down to just one feature. In the case of Giganotosaurus, that was definitely the size of the animal. However, to really look at an organism scientifically, you have to look at all of the anatomy of the fossils that you have. Only then can you really learn how a species stands out. Here's an assignment for any young scientists at home right now. I talked a lot about size in this episode. I want you, with a trusted parent or guardian, to go on the internet and try and find out what the biggest animal ever was. Was it a dinosaur? Or was it something else? Post your answer in the comments and post something other than the size of the animal that you find interesting, because we have to look at all aspects of an animal's anatomy and its biology to really understand it.